Yeah, I think it's also interesting in your title for the book. So many motivational books have the words lesson and rules in them. Yours doesn't. It's habits.
It's habits.
What are you trying to emphasize with habits?
A habit is something we do without thought. It is something that is reflective. It's a reflex. We just do it. And I'm giving people an opportunity to practice these 8 principles in such a way that over time it becomes their way of thinking. Nurturing attitude becomes a habit. Dependability becomes a habit. And high expectations becomes a habit. They become a habit of our heart. They comes from this, they emerge from this deeper place and stands out and stands over us and helps to give us direction.
You've now developed a special edition of 8 Habits of the Heart for educators.
Yes.
Do you really think that character building can find a place in a traditional school curriculum?
I think it can. I think that there are ways to do it. It's basically, it's a call for young people and for adults alike to recognize that our presence will have impact and influence. So knowing that, then how do we live our lives on a day-to-day basis so that this impact and influence can be good? And I think to that extent, our actions build and define the culture around us. And if no one is calling attention to that, then a person may not realize just how impactful their words are, impactful their actions are. So I think, just like at home, if you're doing, hey, don't do that. Wait, don't do that. But if you never say don't do that, people may continue to do that. And all of a sudden the consequences of doing that thing that should have been stopped can be grave consequences.
Kids are awfully distracted these days. I mean, they've got iPods, they're on surfing the net continually. Is there a way to reach through that? Can we teach hope? Can we teach nurturing attitude? Can we teach courage?
I think we can. But first and foremost, I think that the adult educators, all the adult stakeholders, we have to understand that we are being given the challenge to be this in their presence. It's not enough for me just to talk nurturing attitude. If I'm teaching, I have to be that. I have to find ways to create real strategies that my kids would run into on a day-to-day basis that would give them the feel, that's what it is. They begin to see it and begin to bring it into their lives as something that is real and genuine. It's being genuinely concerned and caring about other people. And this is what the habits will help us to do.
You're a devout Christian, and certainly the habits dovetail with your belief system. Do they also have applications for people that have different religions?
Most definitely. I work with people from all walks of life. I work with people from all over the world. And what really amazed me that in Laos, they translate the 8 habits of the heart, and I guess it's Laotian, their language. Because the habits are timeless and universal, and they're not held captive by race, gender, or geography. They are just incredible good life principles that when we bring them to bear in our lives, they make a difference in the world around us.
And that's very, very nicely said. As we sit here talking, Clifton, and people can say to themselves, Clifton is a very successful businessman. He has a beautiful wife and a beautiful son. So it's easy for him to say these things because he's never really been tested. But that's not true.
Not true.
We've all been tested in ways. What has been the defining moment for you, the moment when you might have given up all hope, but instead you decided to believe in these positive things?
There's so many things along the way. Obviously, about the death of our daughter, Ann Catherine. That was a moment in my life that I wondered if my faith had validity. I wondered if I had believed all of these years and that belief was to none effect. But then again, I had to realize that I wasn't the only father who had lost a son, or a daughter in this case. But I was just part of the human family. And being part of the human family, we run into human things. And sometimes they're good and sometimes they're bad. So again, that was probably the biggest thing. That then of course I'd had a health issue with a heart attack, and being able to somehow find the wherewithal to move beyond that and to continue to do the work that we're doing. It just reminds me of 2 things. One is that being a human being is a very suspect position. We don't control very much of anything.
No.
We didn't ask to come here, and we don't have control over when we leave. And you have to remember that.
What's always amazed me about you is to be able to take a tragedy, in the case of your daughter's death, and turn it around into something that might help others. In the case of your daughter's death, you wrote a series of books. The Little Cliff and the Porch People was, I believe, the first one, wasn't it? Wonderful stories that continued that legacy of love that you had for her and reached out to other children.
Yeah, because I wanted, Anne Catherine just was so darling, and she left us at this incredible stage at the age of 7. She was able to understand what it meant to be a daughter in a home that loved her. And I'd go to her school and read, and she would just say to the student, "It's so wonderful to have an author in the house." And I just said, it just blew me away. So I had to write those books, and my plan is to write 4 others. I wanted to write 7. I've written 3 and the Little Cliff series, but I think it's time for me to start thinking about the 4 others, because I wanted to write one for each year of Anne's life.
You don't have much time, though, because you're writing so many different things. And there is another, Ghosts of Little Cliff. Now, this is not one of the picture books that we've been talking about.
No.
But this is a very interesting story. Tell us about it and the very intriguing subtitle you came up
for.
for.
It's the subtitle is Beyond the Lingering Issues of Race, the Lingering Lessons of Race and Place. I'm writing this book. Starts out the prologue and the introduction. It's all about a letter to my son, who's now 29. It's about helping him to understand the life of his father outside of my grandpa's house. How the gentle lessons of race and place, how your grandparents had to teach you how to be colored. Because you're not born understanding that. You're born understanding how to be a human being, not how to be a quote-unquote a colored human being. So those were the gentle lessons of race and place. Then there were the harsh lessons by the broader society that was also making sure that I understood what my color meant and the limitations that it had and where I could go. And those lessons were not taught to be temporary. They were taught to last a lifetime. And for the men and women of my generation, many of the African-American baby boomers, and white Americans as well, those lessons still show up.
I'm interested in the emphasis on race and place. Speak to place. Race we understand.
Place is a real thing, but it's also a metaphor for the journey of your life. Real place is, we had certain segments of the town that was allocated for us. There were certain places we couldn't go. You had to know, quote unquote, your place. Where is that place? But place also is your journey. How do you meander through this life and finding your seat at the table, or finding a seat is not there for you? How do you deal with it when a seat is there, but you have these intuitive feelings that there are some people wondering why you're here? So race and place is these two things that were just so critical in creating the world that we defined historically as the world of the legally segregated. And there were so many lessons around those terms to solidify them in our hearts and minds.
Well, we've got a rare opportunity now. You're going to actually read from this book.
Yeah.
It's in pre-publication stage.
Yeah, my agent has it in Boston.
So this is seriously breaking news.
Oh yeah, this is breaking. And the